Now, at the top of the program, one of the issues I talked about was the idea of an Aboriginal flag on top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. You can always go back on YouTube or the website and have a look at those editorials if you missed them. But I want to talk about another flag issue now, because if you have a look at this picture, a still photo we've got today of a press conference set up for the Greens leader in Sydney today, Adam Bandt. See, he's pushed the Australian flag off to the side so that he could stand in front of the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander flag. He was pushing aside the Australian flag and preferring the other two. Here's what he said about it.
It's time to understand that the history of this country and the symbols that represent the history of this country are very hurtful to the First Nations people of this country.
So there we go. We've got the Liberal Premier of New South Wales sticking the Aboriginal flag on top of the Harbour Bridge, adding it to the flags. Another flag in the mix. The Greens leader doesn't want the Australian flag. Just extraordinary. I can't wait to find out what Amanda Stoker, the former Liberal Senator for Queensland, thinks of this. G'day, Amanda. Thanks for joining us. What do you think about this? An elected representative, the party leader, who says he rejects the Australian flag.
Hi, Chris. This has been Greens policy for some time, and I guess it's just coming to greater prominence now that we have so many Greens and so many Green-like members of Parliament who will have the opportunity to serve. The idea that people who have sworn allegiance to this country and its Parliament and Her Majesty, its head of state, could disown the flag that represents all Australians is, I think, emblematic of the black armband attitude that it has to Australian culture, to Australian history, and by consequence to Australia's future. And Australians deserve so much better than that.
Yeah, look, I think it's disgraceful. He should surrender the salary that Australian taxpayers send him at the same time if he wants to disown the whole show like that. It's just pathetic. Now, Amanda, we're very disappointed that you missed out on that tight Senate run. I did share with my viewers the other day, though, the silver lining that could come from this, and this that you might continue your political career in the lower house, where there might be more opportunities for you in the medium to long term. I know Paul grilled you on this last night, but can you at least tell us that you're seriously considering making sure that your political career continues?
Oh, look, I've left nothing in the tank when it came to this Senate campaign. The very fact that we were still in the race 3 weeks after Election Day says something about the quality of the campaign we ran, even in a difficult environment. And I've got to thank people right across Queensland for the enormous support that they gave me, and indeed the LNP volunteers who showed up in force to make sure that our Senate message was strong everywhere. I'm not closing any doors or making any commitments. I'll take some time and enjoy my family for a bit, and together we'll come up with a bit of a plan for what's next. But the future is bright, and I'm sure there's plenty of good adventures ahead. There's more than one way to serve a community, of course, and I think of the people down at the Meals on Wheels and the local footy club and all the ways that they serve our communities. Plenty of ways that I can make a contribution. There
are indeed, and you certainly deserve a break, but we certainly hope that you're back in federal politics in the future, because I think all of us, most of our viewers would agree that you've got so much to offer the country. I do want to get your thoughts, though, on the energy crisis. You get accused of oversimplifying these things because our policymakers have made them so complex and so inane that the simplicity makes them look foolish. But is it not the case that in this country, state and federal, Labor and Liberal, the overarching push of our policies has been to subsidise renewables, to push out the fossil fuels, and now we realise, oh, jeepers, we've gone too far. We need to subsidise the fossil fuels to keep them viable because we need them.
I couldn't have summarised it better. We've spent well over a decade subsidising to the eyeballs renewables, only to have Labor people come out and say, but renewables are the cheapest form of energy. You go, well, yes, for the 1 hour of the day when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining, but for the other 23 hours of the day, you need baseload energy to be able to balance out and support the system to make sure that you can get those moments of good value. It's time for everybody to take the ideology out of this and go back to practicality And if we take away all the green ideology and all the carry-on, we're left with the fact that renewables have a place, but so too does coal and so too does gas. And if we've only got gas, then we end up at the mercy of a monopoly there, and that we should be looking at other solid ways to support that system. And lifting the barriers to nuclear energy is one of the many sensible things we could be doing to increase the number of low emission, indeed no emission, options for baseload energy support that we know the system needs. What we don't need is Chris Bowen standing up day to day and giving us a bunch of technocrat gobbledygook designed to confuse people rather than cut through to the truth. And that is balance in everything makes sense.
Is this then the one policy area that stands out above all others where the coalition has made a mistake in recent years, and where the coalition can absolutely stamp its claims on being a better governing party 3 years hence?
Look, there's no doubt that the cost and reliability of energy is absolutely critical to the number of options that exist for less well-off Australians to be able to climb that ladder of opportunity. And there's no doubt that it's one of the biggest stresses on the minds of small and medium and big-sized businesses. And so the cost of energy and the reliability of energy threads through everything. I would commend the approach that was taken by Angus Taylor, because he was dealing with exactly the same situation, and yet we didn't have daily press conferences threatening blackouts. What we had was stability and reliability in the system and decreasing prices. I think that's quite significant, that as soon as we see a change of government, everyone's hit the panic button. That says that we're dealing with amateurs, when before we had somebody who really knew what they were doing.
You better make sure...
But I think it's also true to say that...
Go on, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's also true to say that the technology will continue to improve, and so that's not wrong either. But it's vital that the ideological elements that have driven so much of this are out and the practical elements prevail.
Spot on. Thanks so much for joining us, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Good on you, Chris.
Former Senator Amanda Stoker there. I was just going to say, when you press that panic button, though, you want to make sure there's a couple of AA batteries in it, because there might not be any power going to the button assembly.